Good Monday morning, everyone. Mayor Chris Jensen here for another edition of Mental Health Monday on a somewhat cloudy day here in Noblesville, Indiana, on the 21st day, the first day of summer, I believe, 2021. I am joined once again by my good friend, Kristen Boyce, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. It's so good to see you this morning and be here.
Always great to see you. Happy belated Father's Day for those dads, those granddads, those uncles, those father figures. So many descriptions that go around being a father. I hope you all had a great day yesterday. I'm sure you were showered with love. My kids were wonderful. My son Hank, quick funny story, last night about 8 o'clock. And if you know Hank, he's kind of the somewhat aloof one in the family. All of a sudden goes, "Oh, is today Father's Day?" He's 4. And we're like, yeah, today, that's what we've been talking about all day. And he goes, well, is tomorrow Father's Day? And we jokingly said, oh yeah, tomorrow's Father's Day too, thinking we were just joking. Well, he came down this morning, Kristen, wishing everybody happy Father's Day this morning. So one, you got to know your kids, right? He's a little bit more of a literal-minded child, so we will be a little bit more blunt with him in the future. So anyways, every day is Father's Day though, right?
Every day is Father's Day.
Every day is Father's Day. So, hey, I am looking forward to today's show. We have a lot of great topics to cover, very pertinent topics, which we always try to cover pertinent topics. But before we dive into those topics of dealing with our trauma, living in the moment, how we anticipate the future, there's a lot of that right now going on, Kristen. I thought about this morning. You and I chatted offline because summer is such a fun time. It's such a great time in the city of Noblesville, across the country, spending time with your kids. But I think as parents and as adults right now, we're struggling with the uncertainty of what's around the corner, whether your kids are going back to school. There's conversations of masks, no masks, e-learning, no e-learning, social distancing, no social distancing. As an adult, you may be concerned, what does my workplace look like in the fall? There's so much of that what ifs going on that we're going to try to talk about. How do we take a deep breath? How do we stay in the moment? How do we stay present and anticipate appropriately those future decisions? But speaking of deep breaths, let's start with the exercise that we always start with some square breathing, and I'll let you take it from there, Kristen.
Thank you, Mayor Jensen. This is the first step to any type of self-regulation. Self-soothing is to take some deep breaths. It helps regulate your nervous system. And as we alluded to just now, Mayor Jensen, with the unknown, uncertainty, and what ifs, it creates fear and anxiety. And we want to bring it back to the here and now so we can enjoy the present moment. So we're going to put our feet on the floor, centers us, grounds us, and really elevates us to the point to be able to take the deep breath. So feeling your feet on the floor, we're going to inhale through our nose, inhale for 4, hold for 4, and slowly release out our mouths for 8. Like you're cooling soup, cooling a cookie, I do for the kiddos, blowing bubbles, or breathing through a straw. So it's kind of pursed lips on that exhale. So pressing into your feet, let's do it together. Inhale, hold, exhale slowly out your mouth. Just checking in, we're slowing things down. We live in such a hustle bustle world right now. Slowing things down helps you to center, helps you come back into this moment right here, right now. Let's do another one, pressing into our feet. Inhale, hold, and release. Kind of shaking those shoulders out, rolling the neck, whatever you need to do to let go of the tension and tightness in your body. 4 to 5 breaths every hour. So if you have something that tells you when to breathe, don't ignore it. Take it, do it. If you need to set an alarm on your phone, because this will help you move through this uncertainty and this anxiety to come back to center.
I love it. Again, I tell people I breathe all the time. In the car is one of my favorite spots to do that. It's a great way to self-regulate. So I'm a huge fan of square breathing, and we try to practice that at home as well. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to get started here today, talking a little bit about trauma. And I don't know about you, Kristen. Actually, I know your answer because you're a therapist, so you hear this all the time. But I've seen more and more folks over the last 6 months or so deal with reemergences, if you will, of issues that have been in the past for them. And I think a lot of us talk about COVID, and I've said in remarks before that if you had any cracks in your foundation, which we all have cracks in our foundation, COVID really exacerbated those, really brought those to surface, brought those to light. You talk a lot about that. A lot of that's related to trauma and dealing with the trauma of the past. So I want to start there before we transition to the whole conversation of living in the moment, because I think they're very correlated and they go hand in hand. So can we talk a little bit defining trauma and then, how we process that and what that maybe looks like in our life?
Yes. And I think it's an important conversation because we are in a traumatized culture. And if we don't name it, we can't transform it. So trauma is not the event that happens to you. It's what happens inside of you as the result from the event. So if we think about it, we can have multiple people at the same event. Some have what we call post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder or trauma, and some don't. So it's really about what happens inside of you as the result of trauma. And so if we have body sensations that don't get processed, we have emotions that get frozen in time, we have fears that get stuck, we have beliefs about the world that get frozen in that experience, that if we don't process the thoughts, feelings, emotions, and body sensations, we can get stuck in time. We can literally get frozen emotionally in a time period. So for example, if you find yourself overreacting, let's say someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, bah! You're laying on the horn and you're just going to town, there's something deeper in there going on that has been pushed down, shoved down, repressed, and it's not your fault necessarily. And I want to say that not to bypass taking responsibility, is to create insight and understanding. As a child, we have what we call survival adaptations, survival mechanisms that are automatically, we have the autonomic nervous system. Think of automatic. It kicks in to protect you. So we have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And as a child, we might have gone into freeze to stay safe because we couldn't flee, we couldn't move. And that's often the case in childhood trauma where we can't move. And now we added COVID into the mix where we felt like we were kind of trapped. We felt like we were frozen in time. And it's important to acknowledge what that does to the body. We almost disconnect from the body, and the body is a vessel to help us navigate life. It gives us information. And so I love Peter Levine, Dr. Peter Levine, who came up with a treatment modality that's all about the body, somatic experiencing. He said, trauma, I love this quote, trauma is not what happens to us, but what we hold inside in the absence of an empathic witness. What does that mean? That means if someone doesn't acknowledge or hold the space, or we're able to verbalize, we're able to release that body sensation and those emotions, again, we are frozen in that time period. So we might overreact with something in the present that's really about the past. We might put on someone else, displace an emotional response that's really not about your husband or your wife or your partner. It's really about maybe something someone did to you in the past. It could be a parent, it could be somebody else. And it gets displaced onto somebody, and it's not really about that person in the here and now. It's really about what you weren't able to do in the past. We don't know that. It's very subconscious. It lives in the subcortical brain. It's an automatic, again, remember, autonomic nervous system response to try to protect you. And what we're seeing now with COVID, we're seeing we don't know what the future holds. We don't know. So we go into survival states trying to predict the outcome. So we feel safe. We want to feel safe. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Safety is number one. We want to feel safe. And so in order to create safety, we want answers. We want information to go, okay, now I can predict, or I can understand, or there's a knowing about what's going to happen. And the illusion and the disillusion is we don't know what's going to happen 1 minute from now. And trauma wants us to predict everything. Trauma says, I'm not safe unless I know. And it's not true, because what is true is we don't know what minute for minute holds. And so what I teach people is we got to reprocess the past. You've got to be super aware about your reactivity in the present, and then try to figure out, what is this connected to that I haven't processed? Because it's not about the here and now necessarily. It could be about, and typically it is, about something in the past. It robs you of being in the present. It robs you of the present moment, because it's really not about the present moment. It's about the past. And so when we can acknowledge what trauma is, we can name it. We can start processing it. And it's one of the most important pieces I teach clients.
So tell me a little bit, if I've gone through trauma, or if I have a child that's going through it, who's gone through it, how, other than seeking professional help, obviously that's an important area if that's what you feel you need, but like, what kind of questions can we ask, or how do we self-identify in ourselves? If I know that if I am aware enough to know that there's a traumatic experience that I'm struggling with, where do I go? What do I do for myself, or what do I do for my kids after that happens to help them process that? Could you give us some hands-on advice there?
Yeah. So the first thing, the symptoms. So you're going to look at your symptomology. Am I not sleeping? Am I keeping up at night? Am I having flashbacks? Am I having nightmares? Am I not eating properly? Am I not taking care of myself? How's my functioning? Am I able to function? What's my anxiety level on a 0 to 10? Where am I on a depression scale? And looking at, there's what's called adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's called the ACE study. And you can take this, and it goes through, if you have, a neglectful or abusive parent, an alcoholic father, mother, or someone you live with, if you suffered from sexual abuse or traumatic abuse of any sort, you get an ACE score saying that you're more likely to suffer from acute distress disorder, trauma, PTSD. So we're looking at symptomology of somebody. How are we functioning? What's going on within myself? How is my body functioning? Is my body starting to shut down? That can be a signal that there's some repressed grief, some repressed trauma that needs to be, with a professional, reprocessed and tended to, so you can not have to feel like you're living in the past. So you can have joy again. And with children, the number one thing I'm teaching parents that we didn't get the memo on, now that we know about neuropsychology and neurobiology and neurophysiology, is the importance of, one, the body. So if a child says, my stomach hurts, my head hurts, clearly it could be a virus. And we also want to say, is there something emotionally going on? Are you afraid? Are you sad? We're using those core emotions that we've been talking about this whole time. Do you feel angry? Are you disgusted? What's going on? Do you feel anxious about something? Letting the child process what's going on is super important. Now, if this has not been a part of your family system, it's going to take time, because they're not used to those questions. They're like, what? No, they might not even know what they feel, because they don't have the language. They don't have the name for it. When we can start showing up authentically in a family system and name emotions, we then empower our children to know what they're feeling and how to move through it. So we acknowledge the feeling. So if they say, I'm scared because I don't know if we're going to wear masks or not at school, this is a legitimate thing that's going on right now. And you can say, so you're feeling, I'm going to mirror back what I heard my kids say. So their neurons in their brain can go, okay, I feel safe enough to tell my parent. They hear me, they understand me, they love me. So I might say, yeah, you feel really afraid about the mask. Tell me more about that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get sick. So you're afraid of getting sick? Yeah. I'm just going to keep mirroring until there's no more to share, right? They've shared everything. And I could say, so you feel really afraid? Yes. Okay, let's take some deep breaths. and I'm going to have them breathe, right? If they're little, you can have them do bubbles. You can go outside and do bubbles. You can play with them. So you're going to kind of play and talk at the same time. You can even use dolls, depending on what age or Legos, army men, whatever that looks like for your kiddo, to process what they're going through. Because at the end of the day, kids at certain ages get afraid of dying or their parent dying. And when we can get to that, there's great books that you can get on death and how to deal with death. So maybe they've lost a pet in the past and that was pretty traumatic. And we can get books on losing a pet, books on anxiety, about worry. What do we do with our worry? There's fantastic kids books. Go on Amazon, type in kids books on worry. Boom, you're going to pull them all up. Kids books on anxiety. Boom, there they are. Kids books on feelings. That is where it starts. Now, when you have teens, it gets a little harder, right? Because they're starting to kind of individuate, separate. And if you haven't talked about emotions in the past, it's going to feel startling at first to do that. I start at the dinner table. We start at the dinner table. I know we're all busy. We have sports. We got to start somewhere where we're sitting together, talking and doing emotional check-ins. How are you feeling? How was your day? What's your rose? What's your thorn? What's your bud? A bud is something you're looking forward to. Bud is something that you're hopeful about. So rose, thorn, bud. So you're really starting to have some of these conversations. We do it every night in our house. And now my girls will go, what's your rose? What's your thorn? What's your bud? And it's fun to see them now latch onto it and appreciate it. And we've done it for years. Those are just some ideas, but we don't want to pretend like we don't have feelings, because it's not true. And they will not learn how to do hard things in life, because there will be hard things. There will be challenges. We don't want to bypass emotions. That's what turns into trauma.
Yeah, that's incredibly helpful. And I think there's a lot of relatable points that you just made there. Before we transition to the next section, if anybody has any questions or some thoughts, feel free to share them in the comments section. I meant to say that earlier, or you just want to say hi, you're welcome to do that too. This is a very open dialogue. We'll try to answer your questions as we go along here. You touched on it. This is a very natural segue into kind of this anticipation of the future, living in the moment conversation. As I said from the outset, as the sun comes out in Noblesville right now, summer's a great time for families. It's busy time. You shift from school to really Ubering kids around for sports and camps and all that great stuff, which is a ton of fun. There's still an underlying hum, if you will, Kristen. You probably hear it all the time about, what does next school year look like? There, a few weeks ago, one neighboring school district came out with their guidelines for everything, including masks. Well, that then instantly turned on, well, what is this school system going to do? And what's this school system going to do? One college in Indiana is mandating a vaccine, for example, and now the other schools are debating, well, what, and so there's just this constant turmoil, if you will, of anticipation. And that's natural in life, but I wanted to at least kind of address it here today about how, if you're a parent or if you're a child and you're uncertain about what the future holds, or if you're an adult, you don't know what the future holds for you at your workplace, for example, how can we process that, knowing that we're not going to have answers today on what's going to happen in 5 weeks from now when schools go back, K through 12, or 8 weeks from now when universities go back in session. There's probably a lot of decisions that haven't been made yet and aren't going to be made for a little while. So can you help us kind of sit in that discomfort while also enjoying our summer and our moments with our friends and family?
Yeah. And especially, this is what it looks like in trauma. We don't want to sit with that discomfort. We want it to go away.
Yeah.
And when we can get comfortable with going, okay, I understand that prefrontal cortex, which is this front part of our brain, is the CEO of our brain. It is the one that makes it's the executive function. So it keeps us calm. It helps us regulate, helps us be rational. And if we're in fight, flight, or freeze, which is back here in the brainstem, that's a survival state. We're back into we want to know the information so I can calm down. One, we want to acknowledge, yeah, I get that. that makes sense, y'all. Everybody wants to know what's coming next, because then we feel like our nervous systems can calm. And what I want to invite you into is go, okay, I don't have that information. It's out of my control. Let me take several deep breaths, because again, this is a process. This isn't like you do it once and then we're cured. It's a practice. So when that comes up in your body, you might feel it in your stomach. You might feel tightness in your chest. You might feel your throat kind of constrict. You might feel hot flashes. Whatever that looks like for you, feel your feet on the floor. The first thing I'm going to tell you is, my number one thing is you got to be, one is awareness, and two is the breath. The breath helps come back to center, takes us out of the brainstem. It's like I learned to drive on a manual shift car. I don't know if anybody else did, but you're shifting gears, right? Shifting that gear.
97 Ford Probe.
There you go.
Yeah.
Getting those gears. So what it is when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we're in the brainstem. I'm working on shifting into that prefrontal cortex. Now, we know that's not fully developed until age 25. So our kiddos aren't going to be able to do that for themselves. We have to regulate to help co-regulate them. So if I'm not shifting gears and I'm not aware that I'm in kind of a reactivity mode instead of a calm mode, that's going to transcend to my kiddo. So I'm going to go, ooh, I really want to know about those masks. I feel anxious about that. Feet on the floor, take a deep breath. I'm aware I'm anxious. Take a deep breath, breathe. And then I'm going to go, okay, I don't have the information now. That's okay. We're okay. We're safe right now. And I'm going to have to just calm myself, soothe through the unknown until that information is available. And you'll find you want to control it. You'll want to go, and you'll want control over it, because we don't have that control. Go back to your breath and manage what you can manage. You can't manage when that decision will be made, or XYZ, whatever decision it is. I can just manage how I'm going to respond to it. And if there might be an invitation for something deeper for me to look at, and that has been the case for me in COVID, right and left and everywhere else, and my clients, there's an invitation for me to expand and do deeper work. Oh, didn't realize I had anxiety over that. Well, now guess what? I'm having to deal with it. I'm having to face it in order to be the parent I want to be, which is the present parent. Am I perfect? Heck no. So I don't want anybody to think I'm over here doing things perfectly. Contrary, I will have to then circle the wagon back if I get real dysregulated and take ownership of that, acknowledge the hurt that might have caused. If you do not recognize your intensity around not knowing, you will instantly, it's contagious. Anxiety and shame says I'm not good enough, is one of the most contagious things we pass down to our kids. So if I'm not rumbling with it, I'm literally inadvertently and subconsciously passing that down. I have to look at my own intensity around whatever it is. And if it's the unknown, that means I got some work to do to self-soothe, calm down, and maybe there's something in the past I need to clear out.
Yeah. So let's take a scenario on this a little bit, if you wouldn't mind. Something that I've experienced a little lately. So say you're at the ball field with a bunch of other parents, and a topic comes up of uncertainty, and it could be the school year, it could be tryouts for the baseball team, it could be, you name it, across the board. And one of the worst things I've found is, and when you gather in a group and it's a group pile on the topic of what if, and well, can you believe they're going to do this, or what if, and rumors are flying. But if, say, you're a centered person in that conversation, you have done your self work, and how would you help to maybe express to others on how to be present and to kind of process that uncertainty in a group? I know that's kind of a loaded statement there, but I feel like a lot of folks find themselves in that, and that's where a lot of this worked upness comes from, is from group settings. I see it all the time, and usually they have about 7 meetings with other people before they actually come to me to ask me the question. If it's a city thing, where we could have probably just circumvented that and had the answer if you just would have come from day one. But we all have that in our family, where rumors and conversations boil up and boil over. How could you help maybe stop that from the very beginning to help work people through that anxiety or anticipation or fear?
Yeah. So the first thing is we know anxiety is contagious.
Yep.
So if one person in the group's doing it, chances are everyone else is like, oh, yeah, me too, me too. First thing, take a breath. Again, you know that. Second thing is acknowledge. Yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I know that stirs up a lot of stuff and it can stir up, a lot of fear. And I've just been doing my deep breathing over here, because we can't control what the outcome is going to be. And I know that we want answers. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. Because the one thing we don't want to do is shame somebody for having the anxiety. Where the line gets drawn is when we then start sharing that anxiety and want someone else to make us feel better with what information they have. Like we're like, oh, have you heard? Have you heard? And that creates the dysfunction like we do in family systems, right? You see it all the time. A sibling will call another sibling, or a parent will call another sibling. And now we've triangulated people into our anxiety. What we don't want to do, and we see that a lot in groupthink, is we triangulate people into our anxiety rather than saying, hey, I own it. I'm anxious. I'm anxious about the unknown. I get it. And I realize it's beyond my control. So I'm over here doing my breathing, owning it, naming it, and leading by example is how I usually do it. And I acknowledge that we all have anxiety, and that makes sense. So there's no shaming going on. There is an acknowledgement of the as is. The as is we're in unknown territory. It was there before COVID. Now this is heightened, right? Because we have felt like we lost so much control, so to speak. We never really had it, but you see what I'm saying? Now it has stirred up, all this unknown has stirred up this feeling of, I feel out of control, and we're afraid. What are we afraid of? Peeling that onion back. What is the real fear? And you got to get to the bottom of it, because it will enlighten you. It will enlighten you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I know that was kind of a hypothetical, but I imagine anyone listening or listens to this later on can probably find themselves in that situation. And I just wanted to at least kind of have an honest conversation on how to work ourselves through it. There's probably no magic bullet. It's going to be a just lead by example conversation, like you said. So I wanted to kind of equip our listeners with some of that. So this has been an awesome topic, and one that I imagine we'll probably expand on a little bit more as the summer goes on. And we kind of go into some new chapters in people's lives. And it doesn't even have to do with COVID. There could be some first-time parents sending their kids to kindergarten, and there's uncertainty. I know I've talked a lot about school because it's a very topical situation, but there's all sorts of things we can address here. So I'm looking forward to it. Kristen, before we leave, as always, if I'm in crisis, if I'm struggling, if I need help right now, where do I turn?
1-800-273-TALK. That is the suicide prevention hotline. You can also text 741-741. Please don't hesitate to do that. People are like, I don't know. I'm like, that's what they're there to do, is walk you through any type of suicidal thoughts, ideation, you're feeling stuck. Please reach out for help. We also have Prevail here locally if you're in a domestic violence situation or emotional abuse, 317-776-3472. There's so many resources out there. And on the City of Noblesville page or website, there is a page of resources. I think it's under mental health.
Yep, cityofnoblesville.org, and you'll see the mental health section there.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot of resources. If you need anything, click on that page, and there's lots of help available.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kristen, as always, for this great conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks to tackle another topic. If you have topics in mind that you'd love us to address, shoot us a note. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, love your feedback along the way. But in the meantime, you're not alone. You're worth it. Stay safe, Noblesville and the United States and the world. And we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks again, Kristen.
Thank you.